How do forensic experts interpret DNA evidence? If you've ever wondered how forensic experts use DNA to solve crimes, you're about to find out. Let's break down the process step by step. When DNA evidence is collected from a crime scene, it can come from various sources like blood, saliva, hair, or even skin cells. This DNA is then compared to the DNA of suspects to see if there's a match. The first step in interpreting DNA evidence is to create a DNA profile. This is done using a technique called short tandem repeat (STR) analysis. STR analysis looks at specific locations on the DNA where short sequences of DNA repeat. These repeats vary in length from person to person, making each profile unique. To analyze the DNA, scientists use a process called Polymerase Chain reaction (PCR) to amplify the DNA sample. This means they make many copies of the DNA, even if they start with a very small amount. This is especially useful in cases where only a tiny bit of DNA is available, like with touch DNA from an object someone has touched. Once the DNA is amplified, it's analyzed to see how many times the short sequences repeat at different locations. This information is used to create a DNA profile, which is then compared to profiles in databases like the Combined DNA Index System, CODIS. If a match is found in the database, it's called a hit. To confirm this match, forensic experts collect a known DNA sample from the suspect and compare it to the crime scene DNA. If the profiles match, it's strong evidence that the DNA came from the same person. However, things can get complicated when the DNA evidence contains mixtures of DNA from multiple people. This can happen if several individuals have touched the same object or if there's contamination. In these cases, interpreting the DNA requires careful analysis and statistical calculations to determine the likelihood that the DNA came from a particular individual. For example, if investigators find a knife with DNA from multiple people, they need to figure out whose DNA is most likely to be relevant to the crime. They do this by looking at the amount of DNA from each person and considering other evidence from the crime scene. If there's a lot of DNA from one person and less from others, it might be clearer whose DNA is most important. In addition to STR analysis, other techniques like mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA sequencing can be used, especially when the DNA is degraded or there's not enough nuclear DNA to analyze. mtDNA is found in the mitochondria of cells and can be useful in identifying remains or linking family members. The entire process, from collecting DNA to interpreting the results, involves meticulous attention to detail and advanced scientific techniques. Forensic experts use these methods to ensure that the DNA evidence is reliable and accurate, helping to solve crimes and bring justice to victims and their families. So the next time you hear about DNA evidence in a crime story, you'll know the intricate steps that forensic experts take to interpret that evidence and piece together what happened.